Once again, it's 10-Figure Trucking Mastery. And just want to really go over the foundation of the group once again. Do this every single week just to let you know if you're new, brand new to the community, you want to understand what we're about. And this is me, Cheston Bulgin, By the Books Consulting. And this is how you reach me. If you didn't know, now you know. This is our website, bythebooksconsultants.com, and this is my direct email, Cheston@bythebooksconsultants.com. And we do accounting, QuickBooks. We also handle the technologies inside of your trucking company to bring clarity, peace, and ease to your organization with the systems. Tax planning, big deal, that thing that we do here. Make sure that when you make your money, you get to keep it. And we also do operations consulting. So if you have anything inside of your organization, your operations, your trucking company, kind of, spinning your wheels, not really knowing what it is to do, there may be a gap inside of your business, and we can come in and help you bridge that gap inside of operations consulting. All right, so disclaimer real quick, the following is for educational entertainment purposes only and is not to be considered financial, accounting, or legal advice. Please consult your tax, accounting, and or legal professional for specific advice. Today's call is not going to be much about, the accounting and number side or any type of, structural tips or tactics today. Today, we're actually going to get into some really good things that can transform the way you run your business, from a bottom line perspective and just from an ease perspective. But 10-Figure Trucking Mastery, this is what we're about. We have these tenets that we're founded on. It's 4 pillars. One is intentionality, which is mindset mastery. This is a must. This is the foundation. This is the foremost thing that you want to have when you're looking at taking your business. I don't care whatever business you have, especially inside the trucking industry. We want to make sure that we have this in place, this mindset mastery. Then we have financial mastery, which is really financial literacy, understanding, the number story of your business. Then we have structures and system mastery. We've been in this conversation for the last couple of weeks as we drive forward in 2023. Last but not least, we have actions. And this is really where it counts, right? This is where the rubber meets the road. This is execution mastery, okay? So these 4 tenets are what we're founded on. If we have all 4 of these things working together, there is no other option but for you to take your company, your life to the next levels and beyond, okay? All right, so we're in this conversation about driving forward in 2023. And today, we're going to break off of the structure component that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. And we're going to have an amazing conversation with our fantastic guest here, Matthew Kane. All right. Now I'm going in and out like the Matrix over here around my computers.
There you go. There you go.
Right. So I just wanted to make sure I'm good on video. And Matthew, I just want to welcome you to the group, to the mastermind group. I'm definitely appreciative of you taking the time to be here, to have this conversation with me. You and I have talked a couple of times about what it is that you do and what you're bringing to the industry. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you've been up to and the things you're looking to create inside the industry.
Sure. Cheston, first of all, let me say thank you for the invite. Greatly appreciate. Happy to be here today and welcome everybody else listening in. My name is Matthew. I am the chief broom sweeper and founder of a company called Riteload. Basically, we are a technology platform built on top of a load board with an enormous amount of other benefits and accoutrement and features and benefits that I'm sure we'll probably get into a little bit deeper during the conversation today. But happy to enlighten some people as to what we're doing and what we're building. And we're only just a couple weeks now out from turning this loose into the marketplace. Me personally, and a lot of people who will understand what we've built. After looking at it, we've got seasoned people that have individuals who have been in this industry now for decades. And after they've seen what we've built, they've said that this is, in fact, probably one of the most dynamic, industry-changing business models for the entire transportation industry. So, wow. I'm excited to talk about it a little bit deeper today.
Fantastic. Let me ask you this, man, because we had a conversation a while back toward the end of the year, and you were telling me the story about how this got developed. You're not, you're not in the industry. Your background is not in the trucking industry, but you met some people, right? And yeah, you like military guys, man. You're a supporter of the military and everything. You had this story that was pretty interesting to me. Tell me a little bit about how you got started, even though you weren't in the industry um, from the beginning. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So, I have been and still am today, and probably and will be, not probably, I'm certain I will be a big supporter of our veterans, our both active and inactive retired veterans. I'm a firm believer that people that go out there and have to put on the kind of armor that they have to do for their job, like things that don't kill you or let people kill you. As far as I'm concerned, that's a hell of a job. And if you're going out there and doing that, on a daily basis, as far as I'm concerned, you deserve all of my respect and gratitude. So,
Yes,
so I've been that way for all my life. I will be for the remainder of it. And I went down to Washington, D.C., wound up connecting with a whole bunch of veterans and truck drivers down there at an event down there. And the next thing I know, I start hearing about the problems. Me having zero knowledge in the trucking industry, none. I was as clueless as most of the other people out there in the world about trucking. Things just showed up on the shelves and I was happy that they were there. So, these individuals started telling me, about the issues and the problems that they have, they were directly affected with and ongoing. One of them is, freight brokers. There's a lot of bad freight brokers in the industry. There are some good freight brokers out there. So this is not a blanket, trashing kind of a conversation. I understand that there's some very good people out there that do the right thing, but there's a lot of bad ones out there as well. And, they started telling me about detention times and getting paid and things of that nature. Excuse me. I left that gathering, came home. It just gnawed at me for a little while, and I started to devise. Like, I already kind of knew in the back of my head while I was there, I think I could fix this. I've kind of been an entrepreneur, is what people call it. I call it a knucklehead. I'm just a guy that looks at things,
Yeah. You and me both, brother.
So,
Yeah.
I try not to put myself into any real category. I just like to be, I like to know. So I don't like to have a conversation. And then if someone tells me something and I don't know what it's about, I want to go dig a little bit deeper. So that's what I did. And it just kept gnawing at me. So I decided I wanted to go and find out a little bit more about the trucking industry and find out if these, dozen and a half people or so truck drivers that I met, if they in fact were just complaining, and a small faction of them, or was this really more indicative on a national scale that this was kind of the sediment for a lot of the drivers in the industry? So I packed a small overnight bag and I said, I'm going to go out and talk to a couple of truck drivers at a couple of truck stops. And I did that. The only thing is I came home, I did 8.5 months tour around the country, truck stop to truck stop to truck stop. I bought, I don't even know how many thousands of cups of coffee, and probably half as many buffet dinners, and just said, hey, are you a driver? Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? I'll pay for your coffee, or I'll buy your breakfast, or whatever time of day it was. And I did that. And I came home with, my Lord, I don't even know how many, but those yellow legal pads, stacks of them with tons of notes that I had made on my little journey. So I tell everybody, wow, I have my master's degree in the trucking industry. I got it over an 8.5 month period being out on the road because, I talked to just a countless, I don't even know how many truck drivers out there, men and women, from every different economic background, race, religion, creed. It didn't matter. Like, I got a full scope, but I didn't just stop with the drivers. If I happened to be blasting across I-10 and I drove past a big industrial park off onto the side, I went down to the next exit. I hung a U-turn, went back, found that industrial park, pulled in, jumped right up onto the loading dock on countless numbers of occasions, and walked in and said, "Who's in charge of the shipping? Can I ask you a couple questions? I'm not here to sell you anything, So I tried to get the most enlightening education that I could from both sides. Okay.
Wow.
And here's a key for me. And this is a an extremely controversial comment. So there will be a lot of people that will have their own piece to say about this. But the reality is, unless you're not, if you're thinking and looking at things with realistic terms, there are two entities that need to be connected to make transportation work: the shipper and the carrier. That's it. No intermediaries. There's the need for freight brokers. And this isn't just me saying this. It's been proven, millions and millions and millions of times before this conversation. So, and that is a fact. Okay. So I know that there's a lot of people out there say, oh, it's all about the relationship, et cetera. And I don't disagree with that. I truly don't disagree with that as a whole. But there are parts of that where you have to take it aside and be realistic and not fool yourself. You have to understand, especially in today's times, Cheston, you have to understand that the marketplace is in turmoil. Rates are hitting the skids. People are having problems. Trucking companies, small independents, are going out of business at like an excessive rate. Okay. This is not good for the industry. I mean, it's really, really bad. So,
if I can interject, if I may, with this,
Sure.
because you're really talking about something very critical and vital right now with that. And I just want to acknowledge your journey and your commitment and your passion to doing all that, man. It's like, yes, there's somebody out here really cares enough to go and take it into his own hands and get all this information that really is meaningful. There's a pain inside of the industry that is it was ever existent, as far as what people go through, not just from just like standing at the sitting there at the shippers for hours on end, detention times and everything. But it's like, well, at the end of the day, am I really valued for what I do? Is really the questioning and internally that an owner operator has, or a carrier has. Just is it am I important, and do I have value? Do I have purpose here? Because always feels shortchanged. And when you're talking about, when you say that there are only two parties that are needed, that can be like controversial, and it's the truth, right? It's like only the two parties are needed. And the reality of the situation is that, the margins, the net margins on a trucking company, on a carrier, you're talking like historic, like 4-6% of revenue, right? And
if you're lucky, sometimes.
If you're lucky, right? If you're lucky, somewhere in there, right? And how much of that can be recaptured if we think about what you just said, that there are only two parties needed? It's like amazing.
It is. And the unfortunate reality is that there's a lot because of, stop and take a moment and think about how eclectic the trucking industry is. Okay. You've got some people that barely made it through the 7th grade that can drive the hell out of a truck. Okay. And that was their calling, and they decided, or it was their parents or father or somebody who did it before, and that's what kind of led them down that path. And then you have the other side of the spectrum, where I met a guy who actually went to Wharton School of Business. The guy graduated tops in his class. He went to work in that industry and hated putting a suit and tie on, and decided, you know what, I want to go stare out a windshield and go make a living this way. And so my point is that, in the industry, there is such a deep number of different personalities, et cetera, that are here. From the guy that barely made it out of 7th grade to the guy that, graduated from Wharton, and everything in between. Everybody has their own take on how the business should be run, et cetera. And that's controversy, but that's actually good. Do you know what I mean? Because people need to stand up and say, I think it needs to be done this way. I think it needs to be done this way, because you never know what someone's going to say that could potentially spark a, hey, you know what? Maybe not exactly that, but maybe we could do it this way, and it would keep that segment happy. Like, there has to be an enormous amount of information intake, and then finding the best compromises that makes the system work as a whole.
Absolutely.
As the general schmoes in the world, okay, we depend on truck drivers. Like, that is a job that has got to be one of the top 2 or 3 most thankless jobs that I'm personally aware of. I'm sure there's a lot more. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But for the things that I've been introduced in my life, you know, I'm not interested in leaving my house and my family for 10, 12, 16, 18 weeks at a time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have no interest in that. Like, I like to be home. I'm too much of a homebody, you know?
Yeah.
But someone has to do that. You know,
Yeah.
that's what makes our world go around. So, such a pivotal industry in the survival of all of us. And we kind of
And
crap on this industry
yeah.
pretty regularly.
Yeah.
You know what I
No
mean?
gratitude. Yeah.
You
Nothing.
know, there really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And listen, you know, there's some people that say, well, you know, that's their job. They chose it. You know what I mean? Stop complaining and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I agree with that. Okay. If this is what you chose to do, and you stay in it, you find out really damn quick in the trucking industry whether or not it's for you or not. Like, you know,
Yeah.
this isn't like, you know, I'll take 6 months. You probably know in the first 2 weeks, you know what I mean? This was a stupid mistake. I'm going back to my job at Walmart, you know what I mean? Or whatever the hell it is, you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
You know, like, you kind of figure that out, I think, pretty quickly. If you're staying in it, you understand it. And when people say that to me, well, that's their job and that's what they're supposed to do, I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
But also kind of look at it from what they do. Like, you know, there's so much to talk about in this industry, like detention time. Okay. When people say, oh, quit your bitching and complaining, and no, you have to get the right money for the load to offset those, there's a million different, you know, conversations that get talked about and discussed about detention. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that aren't in the trucking industry, they weigh in and they say their comments of, you know, oh, it's just part of the
Right.
job. Okay. Let me ask you something. All right. And these are the people that I call the knuckleheads of the world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not bashful about it. I'm meat and potatoes. So people will figure this out. I'm not the most articulate man in the world. I say what I say, it's what I believe. And if it's wreckage, when I walk past and say my stuff, then there's wreckage. You know what I mean? Like, it's not
Let's
intentional.
go.
You know what I mean? It's not meant
Yeah.
to be offensive to anybody. It's just how I believe. But, you know, when you talk about detention, I always say to these people, these knuckleheads, the average Joes out there, I say, listen, okay, do you have a job? Would you be okay if you had to work 3 or 4 extra hours and not get paid for it? Like, you know, would you ever
Yeah.
let that slide
Right.
if you got your
Right.
paycheck and go, whoa,
Common
wait a
sense.
minute, I put 2 extra hours in. How come I didn't get paid? Oh, well, we don't pay for that side of it. If you're sitting there waiting, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? We don't pay
Yeah.
for that. Well, I was clocked in. So again, there's an enormous amount, and I get passionate about this stuff, so I apologize in advance. I'm gonna try to keep that sun out of the thing here.
Yeah.
But I'm a really, really super passionate guy, and I make
Yeah.
no excuses for it whatsoever. I've come to love an industry that prior to 10 years ago, I had no knowledge about. There
Yeah.
are some amazing people in this industry. You and I got to connect and meet you, Justin, okay,
Yeah.
through this industry, okay? And you know, I feel pretty blessed when I stop and think about some of the good, some bad. Some people are not the greatest people or nicest people, and I haven't made friends with everyone, but I certainly have made an awful lot of friends with people, and they are just for the most part some of the most salt of the earth, down to earth, good, wholesome people that are they just want to go to work, and they just
Yeah.
don't want to be taken advantage of every day. You know,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that was the sentiment that I kind of got when I came back after being on the road driving around the country. Like, I
Yeah.
started to feel pretty bad. You know what I mean? Like, and I was one of them. I was one of the people that just didn't care prior to knowing this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
made no
man.
difference to me, you know? So,
Now there's an awareness. There's an awareness there that wasn't there before. And for everybody who's watching, if you're not in the industry, if you happen to catch a glimpse of this on YouTube, and you haven't been in the industry, now you're aware, right? So what are you
right.
going to do about it? So this is fantastic. What I would like to do here, Matthew, is pivot into start to talk about Riteload.
Sure.
Yeah, so let's talk about this whole industry transformative technology and business model that you put together.
Yeah, it's again, I'm kind of, I get hesitant, when people use like the term disruptive. this is a disruptive technology, et cetera. I kind of despise that term, me personally. Okay. I know it's a key word and it, sends off all the bells and whistles in the marketplace when people say there's a disruptive technology out there. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, the trucking industry is already extensively disrupted. Okay. The industry doesn't need one more person or another technology company or something coming in disrupting it even more. I like to try to tell people, I think that we're the company that's here to fix the disruption. Okay.
I hear that.
Okay. Yeah. I want to be considered the company that, we kind of looked at this thing as a whole and said, you know what, this is in bad condition. There's some broken knobs on this thing. And, the volume doesn't work and, you can't change the channel right. Like, let's fix this thing, So that was the catalyst for me after coming back, understanding how broken and how badly a lot of people get treated in this industry that are out there that are just good people trying to earn a living. And that was my mission. So I started architecting Riteload. Now, being the owner of a technology company, I try to make sure that I tell everybody right up front. I may throw out a couple of tech terms kind of things. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Okay. My smartphone outdoes me 4 times a day. Okay. I'm just a guy with the checkbook that's got an idea. Okay. Yep.
And by the way, you resonate with a lot of folks there in the trucking industry, right?
It's kind of like an oxymoron to tell people that I own a technology company, and maybe not to them because they don't know, but it is for me in my own thought process because I know better. So I like to just try to be upfront with everybody and tell everybody, I'm not a tech guy, but what I did do is I kind of started to build out this whole platform in my head. And where I started 10 years ago was I started drawing pictures. After I came back and I started going through the notes, I said, you know what? I know that we can build something. There was enough technology on the internet that I'd seen websites and how they worked, et cetera. And I know that I could probably build this out. So I became a stickman figure artist. So I've started to lay out pages and saying, this is what I want the homepage to look like. Okay. And then there'll be 5 buttons. And when you press this button, this is what I want that page to look like. And that's got 3 options. And I literally storyboarded this entire thing, okay, to the best of my ability. And then, turned it over to the first development company that I went through, and they sucked. And then I went to the second company and they sucked. You know what I mean? So, we just had problems after. This was not an easy journey, and by no means am I, trying to sound like a complainer. But this was, I think a lot of people probably would have quit a lot sooner into the game here, because it really truly was not an easy thing to do. But we built a platform now that has, for all intents and purposes, probably some of the top most problematic issues in the trucking space, the transportation space, we've addressed and fixed them. And we fixed them using technology, and we fixed them with less human interaction needed, possibly the human pressing a wrong button or inputting the wrong information. So this is going to replace some people's jobs, no ifs, ands, or buts. But the way that the world is going right now, if someone wants to bitch and complain about Riteload, then my suggestion is do you get Amazon that you can call and order something and it's at your front step tomorrow? And stop doing that, because that's progress. Because 25 years ago, that never even existed. Okay. Right. So, and that's just one of, countless numbers of, areas that we have progressed in. So this is just a natural progression for this industry, and that's how I believe it. And there's a lot of people who stand behind us as well. So,
when you talk about those problems that Riteload solved, right? Mm-hmm. If you were to talk about the top 3 solutions that it provides, mm-hmm. that this whole technology provides, what would those top 3 things be?
Great question, hard one to answer. But because there's quite a few of them, but I would certainly say, we have removed the freight broker from the equation. Okay. the Uber Freights and the Convoys and all that, they're tech platforms, but they're just freight brokerages. So they haven't really addressed a fix for the industry. They've addressed how they can make themselves more money and faster and easier, but no one really did anything to be able to help the process, the workflow be much more people never really took a long pragmatic look at things. They was really self-indulging for themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I would say the answer would be probably removing the freight broker, getting them paid, and reducing the potential detention times. Now there's, that's not to say that there's not 15 other things that I think are probably almost as equally important that we've addressed. But, since I'm under the gun here and I'm looking down the barrel, I'm going to give you those three.
Well, I mean, great. I appreciate you answering the question, because even those things, like those three things alone, game changer. Game changer, right?
Yeah.
And then just three.
Yeah, and just for clarity, the one about taking care of the payments, a much faster payment, again, not well loved and received by many in the marketplace, but we've taken factoring out of the equation as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That is very interesting. Yeah, what is it about Riteload that actually solves that issue for cash flow and really kind of puts the pressure on factoring companies?
Well, it's this was simple. Okay, this really was probably one of the most simple things to address. And again, the reason why it took so long to get it fixed was I needed to find the right partner who was able to stand in. They were able to understand the great vision here. Okay. And understand the catalyst and the reasoning and the rationale for wanting to go down this route. So for all intents and purposes, far too many carriers are almost, forced, I guess, not almost, they're really forced into using factoring companies because their cash flow, the last 6 freight loads that they hauled, they didn't make enough profit to be able to accumulate a little bit of money in the bank that gives them a little bit of breathing room. So they're constantly chasing their tails. Well, when you start using factoring companies, people don't realize they're actually putting their foot just a little bit deeper onto the gas pedal of putting themselves out of business.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because the already inexpensive or not well-paying load that you've accepted to try to bring some revenue in, you've now just taken another $60, $70, $120 out of that thing. Okay. And that to me is just total insanity. Okay. So it's you're feeding the animal just even that much further. So what we did was we found a partner who understood what we were trying to do. And it's a one and done. So this has nothing to do with a carrier's credit whatsoever. So the factoring companies, they run the carrier's credit and all. I looked at it and said, why? What does that have to do? What is a carrier, if they've never paid a bill in their life, okay, but they've gone out and did the job for the shipper, picked it up, delivered it, didn't have any issues, and there was a deal that said, we're going to pay you $3,000 to haul that load. You pay them $3,000.
Carrier did his job. He dropped it off. He has the paperwork.
Hey. Exactly. So I looked at it and said, we're going to take all that out of the equation. So in essence, what we're doing is we have a company now, a fantastic partner, and they have agreed to fund the shippers. So they're basically giving a 0% interest credit line for transportation to the shippers for a 30-day period. Okay. They're going to, once the system recognizes that carrier, because we're tracking it all the way through the system, once that carrier has made the delivery, there's no OS&D, no overage, shortage, or damages. Our system says, okay, they've completed it. They've uploaded the bill of lading, which is all done digitally through the system. And now it authorizes our partner to pay the carrier. The carrier, our partner has their banking information, and they're able to now make that deposit in 1 to 2 business days into that carrier's account. Now the carrier has it, but he didn't pay an extra 70, 80, 140 bucks for it. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. Okay. So, and I'm probably over exaggerating on some of the numbers, but if, these guys are out there paying anywhere average between 3 and 6 or 7%, I've heard a little bit higher in some cases.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And they utilize that as because the carrier's credit isn't so good. The hell does that have to do with it? You're collecting the money from the shipper. So everybody has been fooled, I guess, into believing that, this was the right way to go about it. So again, just being pragmatic about it, Cheston. This is
what I'm hearing inside of this conversation. This is a different type of conversation than you would hear from, like a person or a company that is a factoring company or is a broker. This is a conversation of service to the carrier, service to the industry, that the people who actually put their boots on and deliver and do the grunt work, and they're going out here day in and day out and building something, like putting in the sweat equity, right? So this conversation is really geared toward you. If you're that person, like that is you, right? A lot of the times what we'll hear is, people selling you on things, right? Everybody wants to be in your pocket. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that because there's a lot of volume in cash that comes in on a weekly, monthly basis for a carrier, and it's all accounted for. That's what they really don't get. It's like everybody's in your pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this conversation changes the game, because now it's something that's available to where there's a breath of peace and ease and relief that the carrier gets access to now, where there was no access before. Right?
True. Yeah.
So this is like the critical thing that we want everybody to be left with in this conversation, is that there is that light at the end of the tunnel. There is this there's a breath of relief now with Riteload, the company like this, with Matthew bringing to the table. That's the access now. We have that, right? So fantastic. Love this conversation. So let me come out the matrix again. You guys didn't notice I keep going back into the matrix. I have this app on my Zoom that I just put on here that helps me with taking notes and everything, and it just puts me into the matrix every now and again. So
I think it's actually pretty cool. You know what I mean? It reminds me of, remember Max Headroom?
Oh yeah.
Remember the commercials, the Max Headroom commercials?
The computer screen.
Yes. I can't even remember. I can't even actually believe I actually remembered that guy's name, but Max Headroom. So, but no, you're right. So, we've built a true 100% transparent shipper and carrier direct connect platform. Okay. All of the other ones, no one has really built anything that makes the shipper's job easier to connect directly with the carriers, because that takes them out of the business. That takes them out of the industry. What do they need them for? Do you know what I mean? So, but that's exactly what Riteload is. I mean, you can look at it a million different ways from both sides. From the shipper side, you can look at it. We build a load board specifically for your company. Okay. It's your load board. You know what I mean? We're just bringing a massive pool of pre-qualified carriers to the platform that you get to choose. So instead of a freight broker going after the lowest, the guy or the company that said, I'll do it for $6, you know what I mean? Which we don't even allow on our system. That's a whole long-winded conversation, but, we've taken enormous steps to make sure that this is a fair, profitable, easy, efficient way for both the shippers and the carriers to be able to connect, contract, and get the rudimentary, very, very rudimentary side of the whole process of creating a product and getting it to the marketplace. This is the easiest set portion of it. Hey, Joe, can you come up and pick up this address with your big truck? We're going to load it. And then you're going to take that to that address, and then they're going to unload it. That's it. Okay. Stop and think about all the complexities of what the company has to do to get to that point. The owner starts the company, builds the company, creates more people, more jobs, hiring, firing, purchasing, production lines, scheduling, the whole 9 yards. This is when I laugh, when I hear some freight brokers say, well, they need us freight brokers, to handle. Do they really? Like they can handle all of these things and be successful at it, but you don't think that they could handle the most single easiest portion of it was to have somebody come out and pick up their product and deliver it to their customer? Like, it always throws me for a loop when I hear those types of conversations. And believe me, I've had freight brokers call me up on the phone, send messages, lots of negativity, you know what I mean? But when I confront them with, I will give credit where credit is due. There have been some that after confronting them with just common sense, they're like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. They don't like it. You know what I mean? They refuse to like it, because it's going to take them out of their current job. But some of them do come around and they do understand the simplicity of it. And then there's just the other side that are just like, you're an idiot, and they hang up the phone. You know what I mean? So, and a lot more worse words than that, but that's okay. People don't know my background. You better have some big bullets if you think you're going to pierce this skin. So,
I can have this conversation with you all day, Matthew, and we're actually going to wrap it up on our time here. We're going to go another 3 minutes and just call this conversation a quiz. But I really want to have everybody who's watching, everybody who's in our mastermind group as well, to know how they can get involved. Like what do they need to do in order to get involved with Riteload and be a part of this new trajectory?
Sure. We're a couple weeks out yet, so don't sign up today because you're just going to have to come back and sign up again. Okay. All you have to do is you go to riteload.com. Keep an eye out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We'll be ready to have everybody sign up. If you sign up now, it's going to go to our old registration side of it, which doesn't connect you to all of the partners, which is from the time you pick up to the time you deliver, we're covering you with an OCAC insurance coverage. You got $500,000 OCAC insurance coverage. From the time you pick up to the time you deliver, you're covered with a roadside assistance, okay? If you want to switch over to our partner, which is Teletrack Navman for the ELD, and you haul at least one load a month through the system, we'll pay for your monthly ELD service for you. Okay. Life insurance. I'm not allowed to call it life insurance. I have to call it accidental death benefit. But I'm underwriting that personally. So a lot of these men and women out there, one of the many things that I couldn't get into in the top 3 that you asked was, drivers don't have life insurance. They can't afford it. You know what I mean? It's like so low on the list, but what happens if? So we want to make sure that they have something. So I am underwriting. I'm literally putting it out there from the time you pick up to the time you deliver. If there's some form of an accidental death while you're hauling one of our freight loads, I'm paying your beneficiary $25,000. We're able to pay you in 1 to 2 business days, but in a very short period of time, I'll actually be able to pay within 30 minutes of you making the delivery. So I'm telling you, I know that we're coming to the close in this, and I want to thank you again for having me on, but there's so much that we've built into this over a 10-year period. So if you'd like to go to riteload.com, please don't go right away. You'll just have to come back. We'll have to send you an email and ask you to re-register again.
Today is January 18th. I'm sure that as people start to view this online over the next coming weeks, there'll be an opportunity for you to actually get on board with this. You've already heard so much of the benefits and the value that's here for you if you're a small carrier, if you're even if you just have one truck on your fleet, your owner operator carrier, right? This is for you. This is where you actually get to be treated for the important member of society that you are.
We've leveled the playing field. Is basically what it is. In comparison to the big trucking companies, if you're that one truck guys, I mean, that's really who's going to benefit from this the most. People that have 50 trucks or less. The smaller trucking companies, the independent one truck guys, that's the companies that are going to benefit from this clearly the greatest, and that is the largest percentage of the
the industry.
industry as it stands already. So, you know, it just makes sense for us to be able to help these guys and men and women out there that are just being taken advantage of far too often. So, and I thank you for inviting me on, Cheston. This, you know, again, we could talk for probably 6 hours and get about halfway through.
Yeah. We need to have like a weekend and just go to a cabin.
Right. We've gotten over the hump on this hump day, but we're going to get, like I said, you know, there'll be a lot more information that's coming out in the very, very near future. When I say that, like I said, it's going to be a couple of weeks before we're ready to launch this thing. We've had some setbacks in the past, some failures in the past. You know, we just didn't have all the pieces to the pie. Now we have them all, and we've got all of the right partners that are going to make this and facilitate this entire process very, very well. So very, very stoked about it.
All right, brother. Well, thank you for that. Excited to see what's yet to come with this. I'm excited to see how this industry is going to pan out with Riteload and with you. Love the conversation. We're going to keep this thing going. You and I, we definitely want to keep this thing going. All right.
You are a good man. So thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. And hopefully we get the opportunity to do this again, a little deeper dive another time. So, but thank you for that opportunity.
Yes, absolutely.
Have a great day, sir. Matthew. Thank you, sir. All right. Bye-bye now.